Hello everyone and welcome to the first webinar of the series titled What is Experiential Retail? I guess to get started in, maybe we should just, who are we and why are we here?
It's a good start, Al. My name is Ian Johnson. I'm founder and creative director of Quinine. Quinine is a retail experience consultancy. We're design-focused, human-centric. We define, create, develop physical retail environments.
And I'm Alex Whitler. I'm a senior design director here at Quinine. Together with Ian and the team, over the past 10 years, I've been designing experiences for a number of large product and service brands globally.
Okay, well, why don't we just, thanks for the intro there, Al. Why don't we just dive in, Webinar series is about experiential retail, experiences in retail.
Yeah. Everybody's talking about experiences, about retail experiences, and it's the retail buzzword of the moment, and it's just one of those buzzwords that we hate.
It's probably my second least favorite word. Words like innovation, they're overused and underqualified, and experience is one of those words. It means absolutely everything, defined as an impression left on someone, an event or an occurrence they go to. It kind of captures everything, and because it doesn't really mean much to many people.
Yeah, and we're not saying it's not important. It is, of course it is. It's what we do. We create retail experiences, but it's just really important to understand what kinds of experiences are right. I guess what type of experiences are appropriate for you and your brand and your business.
And I mean, it's right on the money, Al. I mean, we're not sit here saying we're going to solve all the problems. We acknowledge the lack of a simple language and framework around the word experiences that we as an industry have. That's the designers, agencies, business and brands. We don't have a framework to allow us to discuss and define retail experiences in a simple way. And I guess that's why we're here today. We have this framework that we use internally to define and discuss retail experiences, and we wanted to share that with everyone on the webinar.
Yeah, we found it really, really helpful, right? And I know I certainly have made great use of it. So we just hope that it does help you and your teams to discuss, to develop, just create amazingly brilliant retail experiences.
Yeah, we're not here saying this is the finished article. It's the start of our journey. And together, I guess we hope, with the feedback of you on the webinar, we can really get to a place where we have this common language to help us discuss and define experiences.
Great stuff. So let's take a moment to set the webinar series up. It'll be a series of 7 episodes, and we'll release one a month, probably the last Wednesday of every month. So that will be about every 4 to 5 weeks. Each webinar will be approximately 30 minutes long. This will be made up of 20 minutes discussion between Ian and myself, followed by a 5 to 10 minute Q&A.
Yeah, and we're going to keep ourselves pretty strict on that 30 minutes. And in order to do that, we ask that if you have any questions along the way, don't wait till the end. Put them into the question box and fire them over to us as soon as you have them.
Yeah. Once we've broadcast, we'll be uploading each webinar to our website so that you can download it from there. Today's webinar specifically is going to be about laying out the retail experience framework that Ian mentioned and giving you all an overview of the components that make it up and how they relate to one another. The following webinars will look at each of the components in greater detail, and we'll be using examples and insights to help define them.
Perfect. Thanks, Al. Let's dive into it. So, why are experiences important? Why are we talking about retail experiences? Now, they're really tied to 2 monumental events that have taken us by storm over the last 10 to 15 years, and that's the mobile and digital revolutions. The impact they've had is immense. They're changing customers' demands quicker than ever. Today, customers don't just define themselves by the products they purchase.
No, they're actually defining themselves by the experiences they have.
This desire, this need, it's past just a want to have meaningful and engaging experience. Customers today search for an emotional connection with the brand, and this has had a huge impact, transformational impact on retail landscape and wider businesses as a whole.
Yeah, and as an industry, I think we as designers, the retailers out there, we all need to do a better job at discussing, defining and validating retail experiences.
How do we build business cases and secure funds to go out and do these amazing things for our customers? It's a challenge. It is the biggest challenge we have. Now, defining new metrics is a bit beyond this scope of this webinar today, Alex. So let's park that, and perhaps we can revisit that at a later date. But for today, let's focus on defining this framework, this experience framework, to help us discuss and define better retail experiences. Now, it's nothing too profound. Don't want to make more out of it than it is. And really, it's just a set of definitions, agreed definitions of words that help us create the right retail experiences.
Yeah, or the appropriate retail experiences. Okay, so let's have a look at the framework then. Where should we start? We start at the core. And at the core of the experience framework is this group of time, place, and people. And it's this trinity of components that they interlink, they connect with one another, they combine, and it's these that set the foundations for all types of experiences.
Now, we've really tried hard to keep this very simple. We understand that it's a bit obvious at times.
Yeah, and it is obvious, but actually it's sometimes so obvious that they get overlooked. But we really shouldn't underestimate the importance of this group.
Yeah, and it's this core 3 components that we use to build up our understanding of the experience. The framework allows us to dive deeper and go beyond just the general impression of a store experience. They allow us to break it up into smaller, more tangible, more definable components.
Yeah, so look, to simplify it, for me to have an experience, I need to be there, I need to be somewhere, and it needs to happen in a moment in time.
Yes, time. Thanks, Alex. Time is one of it's probably the most complicated of all the 3 fundamental building blocks. Glad you've left it to me to talk through, Alex. But time is difficult. It talks about the past, the present, the future. Time is indefinite and continuous. And because of that, we choose not to dive in deep. Don't want to get caught down the rabbit hole around defining time. We just want to indicate and acknowledge that it's a factor. Remind ourselves that there's an external context beyond the store that has an impact on the experience that we are designing.
Yeah, and we do this. We look at time in 3 ways in an attempt to try and simplify it. And so the first area that we look at is when does the experience happen? It's about the time of year, maybe. It's is it the beginning or the end of the month? Is it payday? It's the day of the week, the time of the day even.
I mean, all these things matter, Alex, the morning, the afternoon, the evening, the time of day can set the mood of the customer. That mood sets a precedent for the experience they're going to have. And so it matters.
Exactly. The second area that we look at is how long does that experience last? So we look at the amount of time you spend during the experience. How long does that experience take?
The amount of time a person is willing to commit to an experience has a huge impact on designing that right experience. How long will they stay with us?
And then thirdly and finally, we look at how often the experience happens. This is, the frequency of the experience. How often do you have that experience and how many times?
Is it something that you come back to? Do you see it once or twice? I mean, all these 3 ways that we bunched up time out, again, it's a framework. It allows us to understand the impact of time. But let's choose not to dive deep. Let's not define time. It's a rabbit hole we don't want to go down.
No.
We're just here to acknowledge, sorry, Al, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we just want to say it is a factor in defining retail experiences and one you should lean into.
Yeah, no, it's an absolute beast. So it's really just about considering time and making sure it is a consideration.
So place is the second of our 3 core fundamental building blocks. But we don't look at place in the traditional sense of a physical environment. It's not just about the atmosphere, the 4 walls, the ceiling, the floor. We want to break place down further and look at the component parts of the physical environment. The tool we use to help us in this is something we call the in-store customer journey. And these stages of the shopping experience we attribute to physical locations in the store.
And each brand will define what is right for them. They will define their own in-store customer journeys themselves.
And that's why every store is different. Branded experience. Now, for today's webinar, rather than expose a certain brand's customer journey, we've created a generic set of 8 steps, slightly focused on a more complex consultative type of store journey, but I feel it's applicable right across all of retail.
Yeah, it's a convenient starting point for today, but it's probably important to remember that there will be other, as I mentioned, each brand will have their own customer journey. These customer journeys will likely be a lot simpler. They might be much shorter and include fewer of these steps. And the other point to note is that we will be talking about these sequentially. That's not the reality. Customers rarely go from stages 1 to 8 straight through. They're usually meandering all over the place, up and down, back and forth, through their own buy cycle.
Absolutely. And if we could only control our customers to that degree, it's pretty impossible. But what I can say, most likely all the customers will go through the first phase, which is attract. Now attract, that's where we draw customers in. We stop them in their tracks with eye-catching digital, strong branding, dynamic graphics, elements that encourage customers to stop and take a closer look.
Yeah, and just the 2 words you use there, dynamic and eye-catching, it just reminds me of the Benetton storefront that we saw last week on Oxford Street, the new digital facade. Yeah, it's amazing. But it doesn't have to just be a facade. It can also be an architectural feature in store. And that makes me think of the staircases in Apple and how they use those big glass staircases to draw people upstairs.
I absolutely love when brands use existing architectural elements to create and attract and draw people in. But it goes beyond that, Al. The other day, walking in a mall, I was attracted by a gentleman holding a tray of tea, encouraging me to come in. It's a much more human level of attract, but it's attract nonetheless. And after attract, the next stage we have in our sequence is welcome. And this is becoming more and more important in more retailers up and down the country and across the globe. But this is where we greet customers. We welcome them into our environment. It's so important to make them feel special. It's about this personalized shopping experience they're going to have. It's warm and it's familiar. It sets the tone for almost everything that happens afterwards.
Yeah, and we'd prefer this is a person, but it's only sometimes that this is a person. It could also be a graphic sign. And I know increasingly now retailers, they've got watchful eyes on their headcount. So it can, in some cases, just be a digital screen with a welcome message.
Yeah, we always like that human element in it. But as we said before, every brand has their own demands and needs, requirements. We need to find out what's fitting for them. So let's dive into the third step on this journey, and that's discover. Perhaps my favorite part of any retail experience, but this is about where we focus on surprise and delight. This is about customers browsing, exploring, discovering new products and services. Sometimes this is self-guided, other times it's staff-assisted. At its best, it engages and involves the customers into some kind of activity.
Yeah, I think when it's really, really done well is when it's been curated by the brand specifically to encourage customers to touch the store, to try the products and services that are on display.
The fourth step in our customer journey is select. This is where customers come, they compare, they contrast, choose their products, choose the ones that are right for them.
And this is quite a traditional experience within retail. It has been happening for years, and we would associate that typically with a display fixture, but it can be done through digital screens again in store. It can be, and I suppose this is where that online and inline conversation comes to the table. It's where these systems come together.
I mean, absolutely. We're finding huge levels of innovation and insights coming into this area. Systems leveraging each other, making sure the customer has the products where they are and where they want them. Now, beyond select, we have this consult stage. This is where customers and staff have detailed conversations. It's about confirming their product choices, reassuring them that what they've chosen actually fits their lifestyle. I've mentioned this comes from a more complex consultative kind of sale, but we're finding this has more meaning every day in traditional retail as well.
There are some traditional retail, I guess, it's that reassurance when I go into store. Does my butt look big in this?
But it is that face-to-face advice, interaction, reassurance, that consultative conversation you have with the staff in store that has so much reason for those customers to be in there. So the sixth stage in our customer journey is a little bit operational. It's what we're all there for. It's about me handing over my money. It's a functional payment or exchange. Sometimes this can be a simple purchase. Other times it's a more complex contractual kind of payment.
Yeah, and they're getting even more complex. I mean, the number of ways to pay available to us now there's more than ever before. It just adds more complexity to the mix.
Yeah, I mean, I walked past a till. I've probably paid 3 times. I'm not sure if that was my watch, my wallet, my phone. It just is an area which is actually becoming more and more complex. Now, after that transact, after you've handed over your money, the next stage in our customer journey is a sort of after-sales demo, advice, and setup. This is where customers go a step further. They're told about their products, they're educated, they're informed. How do I get the most out of the product I've just purchased?
Yeah, and it's not just in-service brands, which is an easy example to reference, like telecommunications, the amount of time spent with a customer to set their phone up afterwards. But this also can happen in traditional retail. It's a butcher. It's the butcher who tells me how to cook my pork loin.
Well, I was in Levi's the other day and had a pair of jeans. They sent me immediately downstairs to the in-house tailor. They had my trousers let out a little bit, hemmed up at the bottom, and I walked out as a happy customer. So nice. The final stage of our customer journey is one of reassurance. It's a thank you or say goodbye stage. We really encourage all of our clients to have this stage in their customer journey because it's about follow-ups. It's about saying your experience doesn't end here. What else can we do? What other reasons will you come back and visit us? Yeah,
so it's not a simple sentence of saying goodbye to somebody. It could be the act of taking your groceries out to the car, or it could be the retailer hands over a ticket to an event that's happening in store the following week.
So it's these 8 steps that help break apart the physical place into smaller, more definable components. We combine these components with people and time to build up our experiences. So why don't we shift now? We're running out of time, so let's shift into people quickly.
Sure, let's do it. So people, this is about the customer. This is the consumer, the user, and about their purpose. What is their assignment? What is their need to go into store and their chosen activity?
This is the shopper mission. It's about what each person sets out to accomplish when they go into store, the reasons they go into store, and the expectations they have of that experience.
Yeah, and we call these our experience realms. So these realms, they help us categorize the type of activities that people do in a retail environment. So the first of these is an easy one. It's entertain, and here my purpose is to have fun. It's to enjoy myself, and it captures those activities in store that have been designed for me to emotionally connect to the brand.
Yeah, these can be passive or active. This is the fashion catwalk in store or an after hours party some of our retailers hold.
Yeah. And then there's educate. And this second area is my purpose is to learn something. I want to better myself. And that can be physically, but it could be mentally.
Yeah, this is about participating in events. This is driven by the customer's desire to improve their skills, their knowledge.
So it's the cooking class in store.
Absolutely. It's the physical workout in store. It's even the simple product demo or the training class that you might attend.
Great. So the next area of these 5 realms, it's probably slightly ambiguous, but bear with us. It's escape. And here my purpose is to lose myself, is to lose myself in the experience of shopping. And so this is about me going into store without any expectation on the outcomes. No other purpose, nothing other than just simply to take part, to be present within the retail landscape.
Yeah, and now the way I've always explained this is that some people, they go walking in Hampstead Heath, the rolling hills, the green grass, that allows them to escape. Other people, like my wife, they hit the high street, the chaos, the people, the dynamism of all the retail. That allows her to escape.
And it's actually it's this area where the 4 walls, the environment can have its biggest influence. The ability to facilitate that escapist journey is really strong. The next area, social, this is my purpose. My purpose is to connect with people. This is about building a community, to be part of a community, and it goes beyond the sharing of social media, and it actually taps into all of our desires to make human connections.
Yeah, and today, Al, this is happening everywhere. There's so many places to eat and drink. Customers now expect a social context to be woven into their everyday shopping. We see retail destinations, high streets, shopping centers, even some city districts are providing layered spaces, combining public and private areas that encourage social interaction.
Exactly. And our 5th and final realm we refer to as functional. And this is one we're pretty passionate about, so please bear with us. But here, my purpose it's just simply to do something. I need to accomplish a task. And the reason why we're passionate about this is because we believe that all missions have an element of the functional about them.
Yeah, this is about a task-orientated mission. I set out to accomplish something. I pick up my laundry. I need a new pair of shoes. I want to discuss my mobile phone bill. The mission is to accomplish something. It's about crossing something off on my to-do list. Now, don't want to confuse this task-oriented mission with how a store works, the function of a store. How a retail experience function is tied to the place and the customer journey. Making sure your store works is about getting the basics right. It's not about the shopper mission. Now, we'll discuss getting the basics right in a follow-up webinar, but for now, we talk about the functional-based mission or experience.
Okay, so they are the 5 experience realms, and these are the reasons that customers go shopping, and we feel these 5 missions, these cover most of the reasons we all go into store. But these will mature and grow. They will change as customers' needs and wants change as well.
Yeah, and that's happening faster than ever before. So after all that, we arrive back at our experience framework. At the center of that framework, we have our 3 core fundamental building blocks: place, people, and time. The next layer out is where we actually take those components and dissect them deeper. We section them off so that we can actually start to understand the nuances, the differences, and the stages of each one of those core components. We use those components to help us define and discuss retail experiences, help us define what the right retail experience is. We go back and forth. We use place, people, and time. We layer these together in not a controlled way, but in a dynamic, organic way, always questioning and asking ourselves how these things come together and what experience they create when they do.
I think just to summarize, so if that's the summary of the framework, we could benefit from just having 3 summary insights for the listeners here. And where I would start, you mentioned it there, the start with the core. That concept, that idea of time, place, and people is key. So we would definitely recommend that as a takeaway.
Coming back to what you said at the beginning, Al, I need to be somewhere. I need to be in a place, and it happens in a moment of time.
The second point, the second takeaway is go beyond the store atmosphere. The place should be defined by its component parts, and that is the customer journey, which, like we say, will be unique to each brand. And then finally, the third point is, and it's not one that we've touched on too much, but you can start to piece this together. Multi-layered experiences are the most engaging. So these are when experiences are layered on top of each other, and several experience realms all in one experience will make the most meaningful and memorable experience.
Yeah, and to add to that, Al, we know customers set out on a singular journey. They leave their house with a singular mission in hand. But once they get to store, if there's multiple things that pique their curiosity for them to get involved in, those are the ones that have the most resonance, most meaning, and are the most engaging.
Okay, so do we have time for questions? We need to do a Q&A. Shall we go?
Yeah, we don't have much time, so let's go quickly.
Yeah, so I guess any questions we do not get around to, we will get back to you after the webinar. We'll just make sure we mail you back with the answers. But let's pick 1 or 2 or 3 questions. So
this one's been here since the beginning, Al.
Okay, so let's go with that one. All right. Yeah. You say experience is not your favorite word, but you're retail experience consultants.
Let me
discuss.
Let me tap into this one. So it's not that experience is not my favorite word, or we like it or don't like it. It's just that it's not been defined very well. It's not been defined by the industry, the designers. All of us should take responsibility about that. When we talk about experiences, we need to dive in to a deeper level. We need to have some component parts that will allow us to define and explain what that experience is. So it's not about the word, it's the lack of definition. We too often talk about the experience of the experience, and that doesn't work. It's not very productive. It doesn't allow us to move forward to create the right retail experience.
Great. You want to throw one?
Yeah, I've got one here, Alan. It's quite insightful. So I seem to spend more time waiting in store than doing anything else. Where does waiting fit into your framework?
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So the framework, it's a good observation. The framework is about, if we think of the experience realms, they're the reasons why I go into store. And I certainly never go into store with the reason to wait. That's never my purpose. It's a byproduct of...
It's a consequence of a badly designed experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose we would prefer to... There are absolutely times when we need customers to wait, but let's activate those moments. Let's
give them that time back.
Yeah.
It's wasted time for a customer. Yeah. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not respectful.
So as a customer, I never intend to go somewhere to wait. And as a retailer, we certainly should not be looking to encourage our customers to wait. And so for that reason, it doesn't exist within the framework. The framework is about the ideal scenario that we're trying to create.
Perfect. We got time for one more?
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to pick this. This is a slightly easier one, I suppose, but it's interesting. It's probably a reference to something I said. So I mentioned a cooking class was education. This question is, how is cooking class education? Surely this is entertainment.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And they're both. They mean different things to different people. Understanding that mission that that person sets on to come into store with is quite difficult. But what I can do as a designer when I'm creating these experiences, I can use education and entertainment to understand how to design the details. So if I'm designing an experience which is tilted towards education, a cooking class which has got more education focus on it, probably has more details, it has more measurements, more information around the stuff I'm cooking, how long I cook it for. It's educational, it has more information in it. That would define how I set out the stage and all the props that are part of that experience. But if it's entertainment, it changes everything. The lighting changes, the props change, the amount of time I spend talking about the details, the things I wear even change. And so that's the important bit. As a designer, help people understand whether it's education or entertainment. Design the experience, have those discussions early on, define which side of that path sits on.
Perfect. I do think that's us done, though. I think we are over time. So as we said, we'll get back to any of the other questions that we can see coming through. And that just leaves us to run through next steps. Ian.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks, Al. And thank you all for joining us, spending your time with us. Really appreciate it. We will have 6 more webinars to follow the one we've just delivered. The first of those coming at the beginning of September. We'll focus on place, the customer journey, how those components come together, and getting the basics right really matters and builds up a good foundation to start with. After that one on place, we'll follow it up with 5 other webinars. Each one of those webinars will focus on the experience realms. We'll use a number of insights and examples to bring those to life.
Yeah, so for now, please register for next month's webinar on our website. But yeah, for now, goodbye.
Okay, thanks very much. Look forward to seeing you at the beginning of September. Look forward to seeing